All right, here we go. This is Unit 10 Civil War. We're taking a look specifically at the Gettysburg to Ford. It's the April 30th and May 3rd lesson. So if you missed class on one of those days, and I recognize April 30th, there was the internet outage at Neil, and so you potentially missed class due to no fault of your own. I wanted to go ahead and just screencastify these notes and make it easier for you to catch up. We're going to go ahead and skip past the Southern Bell Ringer for today. You could consider these questions, but we're going to skip right past it. The one thing I will say, this isn't like when I screencast flipped lessons. I'm not going to pause along the way, so please feel free to pause and take the notes as are fit for you. The Anaconda Plan is working. The Confederates, though, hold Vicksburg. This is the last stronghold on the Mississippi River. The Confederacy manages to win some battles and pushes north. Antietam is the bloodiest day in U.S. history on account of those battles pushing north. And as a result of that battle, Lincoln announces the Emancipation Proclamation. You don't really need to worry about these participation points for this particular lesson because it's self-paced. Your note sheet is here. Bit.ly 2QOA lowercase wc u. Two quick ostriches are walking calmly underwater. That note sheet is also listed on Schoology. It's called the 430 and 53 Gettysburg to Ford Notes, #me10. The hashtag makes it easier to find it in your Google Drive. So today we're looking at Gettysburg, the siege of Vicksburg, Sherman's march to the sea, and Good Friday of 1865. You'll be able to demonstrate understanding of the final battles of the Civil War and how it led to the outcome that it did. You'll be able to identify the advantages and disadvantages of each army's strategies. And of course, we're continuing to determine main idea in informational text. Confederate victories at Chancellorsville and Fredericksville are what give them some inspiration that they think they can continue to have some winning battles, possibly move northward. So that's where we start off today's notes. You're going to fill in Chancellorsville and Fredericksburg if you're using the guided note sheet. As a result of winning these battles, Lee decides to invade the North again. He leads 75,000 in invading Maryland, going all the way through Maryland to southern Pennsylvania. He's trying to show southern strength. He's hoping that by showing southern strength, he can potentially get the North to sign a peace treaty, therefore giving the Confederate States their independence from the United States of America. Alternatively, he's hoping that this southern strength will show the European nations that it's worth fighting for the Confederate States, and then they would help. So the North responds with 104,000 troops, and these armies clash, as you can see here with a little flame here, at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And again, pause these notes wherever you might need to as you go along. Gettysburg, day one, the Union tries to hold high ground around Gettysburg, but it's pushed back. And it literally means they're trying to hold the high ground. They're trying to hold the hills around Gettysburg to protect Gettysburg. On day two, the Union creates kind of this horseshoe formation. Confederates launch massive attacks on the Union left and right flanks, trying to wear them down in those areas. At the bottom of this map, you can see Round Top and Little Round Top. Here on day two, Little Round Top is defended by the 20th Maine Regiment. It is led by Chamberlain, a former college professor from Maine, who volunteers to join the Union Army to try to help build soldiers into having those stronger skills that they need in the war. The Union Army depends on Chamberlain to hold his ground at all costs. He defends the Union with only 122 men. And so you can see after 2 days, it seems like the Union's got quite the lead. On day three, the Union switches to this fish hook formation, kind of the big hook around the barb on this side, around the ridges of Gettysburg. Confederates attack on all sides, as you can see with the red lines there. Then General Pickett is ordered to charge the Union center with 5,000 men and break through. Why would you go for the center? Well, he's hoping to break through and just kind of continue to plow onward, showing southern strength and moving even further into the north. If we were in class, I would poll you and ask, do you think that this works? We're going to jump straight to Pickett's charge. Pickett's men must march a mile across open field. They are hit by Union cannon fire and by Union rifles that continue to soldier on. Final charge is turned back by Union reinforcements. Consider that map on the previous slide. Those Union reinforcements can just kind of slide in from either side to cover the center. So Pickett's army of 5,000 is destroyed. The net result of Gettysburg, 51,000 men are dead or wounded in 3 days. It's described as a harvest of death, ghastly heaps of men. You can see just piles of bodies piled up on the battlefield. It's been turned into a cemetery. 23,000 of those soldiers killed, wounded, or missing were from the Union. 28,000 were Confederate. And like I said, 51,000 total casualties in those 3 days of fighting. They did bury many of them here at the battlefield of Gettysburg, which led to Abraham Lincoln making his Gettysburg Address. I'm going to just paraphrase what he has to say here instead of reading the whole thing. You're capable of reading, pausing it here, or opening the slides yourself if you wanted to go ahead and read it. He just basically says, 87 years ago, our founding fathers came up with a new concept for a country conceived in liberty, where everybody's created equal. Now we are engaged in a war that's testing whether we can actually hold to this concept. And so we are dedicating a portion of this battlefield at Gettysburg as a final resting place for those who fought in this battle. The battle they fight is unfinished, and we must go on to continue their battle so that they have not died in vain. We are looking to continue with a new birth of freedom. We want to show the world that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. And again, I think the speech is great. I just don't want to specifically read it when you guys are perfectly capable of reading, and there's possibly some confusion around it. So I just kind of paraphrased what President Lincoln has to say there. Shortly after the Battle of Gettysburg, just a short month later, General Grant takes Vicksburg. This means that the last stronghold of the Mississippi River has fallen to the Union, and the Anaconda Plan is working. The South has been split in half. The Mississippi River, of course, runs north-south right through this area. So the Anaconda Plan, part of the concept was to split the western and eastern Confederate states, southern states. Still takes 2 more years after this of fighting, as I think you know, the Civil War ends in 1865. So obviously we've got 2 more years here. But William Tecumseh Sherman is not so happy with the fact that there's going to be 2 more years of this. He's like, you know what? I am going south and I am going nuts. I will not leave anything behind. Burns Atlanta to the ground and starts plowing out to Savannah, Georgia. They call it Sherman's March to the Sea. He destroys crops, he burns cities, he loots towns, he blows up the southern rail lines. Now, to some of you, it might seem like, I don't know, 60 miles wide, 300 miles long, like it's just Georgia. Basically, Sherman is showing that this can be done all across the southern states. He is sending a message to the Confederacy. That is the point of Sherman's March to the Sea. And so that is kind of the effectiveness of it. We're going to click forward. While Sherman is doing that, Grant is chasing Lee around Virginia. You'll hopefully remember that Robert E. Lee was the chief general for the Confederate Army. Both of these guys, well-educated graduates of the U.S. Military Academy. And so they fought several battles with staggering casualties because much of their army was not trained at the U.S. Military Academy. Eventually, Grant traps Lee at Appomattox Courthouse, which leads to Lee's surrender to U.S. Grant. The soldiers are told they're allowed to return home to rebuild. But anger remains on both sides. First of all, a Union general starts burying Union soldiers on Lee's plantation before Lee can even get home. So he surrenders at Appomattox Courthouse. By the time he gets back to Arlington, Virginia, he finds that his plantation has been turned into a cemetery. 5 days after the surrender at Appomattox, a group of angry Confederate soldiers hatch a plan. They're like, this war is not over. I don't care that Lee shook Grant's hand. They stab the Secretary of State. They attempt to kidnap the Vice President, but that plan fails, and Lincoln is assassinated. He's shot by a Confederate, John Wilkes Booth, an actor who favors the Confederacy, while watching a play. Abraham and Mary Lincoln were known for going to the theater. He dies the next day. If you follow along on the guided note sheet, you'll see that the costs of the war are kind of outlined for you. Here they are on your screen. The benefits of the war are also outlined for you. The biggest things being you start to see some government expansion. The 13th Amendment added to the Constitution, so slavery is actually banned. If you need additional help with this, drop into office hours or ask questions during class. We'll be doing review on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. We'll be doing review on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, getting you ready for that test that'll be put out there and then due on Friday. You're not responsible for this particular exit ticket, but I did want to put the questions up there in case you wanted to consider them. As always, questions, comments, concerns, anything for the good of the cause. In this case, go ahead and send me a G-chat or an email. Continue to take care of yourself and one another. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. Miles, all be yours. We love you.